We have the first major blockbuster trade of the summer starting today, and Kevin Durant getting traded to the Houston Rockets. The Phoenix Suns have agreed to send Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the number 10th pick in the draft, and 5 second round picks. I have to say, this was actually a pretty good deal for both teams, to be honest. I would say for Houston, I felt this was a great deal because I'm just looking at Jalen Green. And what sticks out to me about this guy is the way he disappeared during the playoffs. This guy choked big time. When I look at players, how they perform during the playoffs, I don't always hold it against them if they lose. There are certain situations where you can give it your all and you lose because your team is not good enough, your teammates don't show up. I remember there were plenty of times in Tim Duncan's career where he could not get past the Lakers, and it wasn't because he wasn't putting up great numbers. It was because his teammates weren't showing up, they weren't doing their job, and whatnot. But this is a scenario where I felt Jalen Green, if he had actually done his part and actually showed up as allegedly the young star that they were hyping him up to be, that the Houston Rockets would have won that series. Would have won that series against the Golden State Warriors. But he choked big time. He had a bunch of games where he's scoring 7 or 8 points per game. And I think his regular season average was like 20 points a game. So he massively underachieved in that series. I looked up his average, it was 21 points. And he was just putrid in that series against the Warriors that he didn't show up outside of just one game where he had 37 points, I believe. But the rest of the series, he was complete garbage. And to me, that showed that he's not going to ever be a superstar. This was his fourth year in the league, and I always believe by year 4 or 5, if it doesn't show up then, it's just never going to happen. And that series against the Warriors was very telling. I think that was one of the reasons why the Rockets were able to give him up without any hesitation, because they saw he wasn't going to ever be a legit superstar and he wasn't worth keeping in the long run. And I definitely agree with that decision. I thought it was very important for the Rockets to keep Amen Thompson because even though his offensive game is raw, that kid is a super competitor. He just has killer instincts, I believe, and he's not afraid. He didn't play scared against the Warriors. That he was playing hard for every game, just all 48 minutes on the court he was playing. He showed hustle, grit, toughness. He had a fearlessness, especially when he was attacking the rack, that he was the guy that they had to keep. He's the one that if he can ever fix his jump shot, he will be a superstar. I definitely believe that. Granted, it'll be hard, but if he can do it, he's going to be a great player. I just didn't see that in Jalen Green, so that's why I thought he needed to go. Just he's not a guy you can count on. And then they got rid of Dylan Brooks, who I feel also was garbage in that series, that he didn't come through when necessary. And I just feel Dylan Brooks is all bark, but no bite. He's shown that the last several years, whether it was playing for the Grizzlies or playing for the Rockets. This guy just does not come through when you need him to come through. He talks a lot of shit, but he doesn't back it up. And that act just grows tiresome after a while, where it's about results. And I think he got them as far as he could. They're a young team. He was able to help them learn how to win some games, build somewhat of a regular season winning culture in the sense that they now can play above 500 basketball. But his time was up. There was nothing else he could really have done for this young Rockets team. So I think they'll be fine without both him and Green, that they'll adjust perfectly fine. Now, just giving up the picks, the 5 second round picks, yeah, to me, that wasn't really a big deal. Those 5 second round picks most likely would be nothing. Most times, second-round picks don't result in anything, if we're being honest. Number 10 pick, I don't know who that's going to be, but yeah, it's the number 10th pick. That is definitely not really a big loss, but we'll see whoever that guy is, if that guy turns out to be someone major. But outside of the number 10th pick being like a generational talent, yeah, I don't think they really had to give up really much for Kevin Durant. Now when I look at Phoenix, giving up Kevin Durant is an admission that this experiment that they had the last few years with their owner, I think his name's Ishba, that it failed. They tried to create a super team in Phoenix with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and it failed miserably. The the farthest that the Phoenix Suns got during their Durant era was to the second round a few years ago, in which they lost to the Denver Nuggets, and after that, they haven't been a factor. They lost last year in the first round. This year, they didn't even make it to the playoffs. And just based off of that, it was safe to say that Kevin Durant was never going to get them close to winning a championship. But I also think Kevin Durant got exposed during this run that, to me, he's no longer a superstar. I know people say it's sacrilegious, but he's no longer a superstar. Yeah, he puts up great numbers, but it's about impacting winning. I feel when you're a superstar, even when you're on a bad team, you can get them to the playoffs. Doesn't matter what talent's around you, you're going to get to the playoffs. To look at like Tim Duncan, Shaq, those guys that it didn't matter what the talent was around them when they were in their primes, that you were going to go to the playoffs. And, Kevin Durant is definitely not in his prime anymore. With that being said, he's still a legit all-star player. He's still a very good player. And he can show spurts of being a superstar in some games. He can have turn back the clock moments, but he can't maintain it, in that sense. He's still a very efficient player. So this was a great trade, I would say, for Phoenix, in the sense that Durant was not going to help them long term or even the short term just to get rid of him. They got some solid players in return in Jalen Green. I definitely believe Jalen Green will be a 20-point scorer again in Phoenix. He's going to have the green light to take as many shots as possible. So he'll be able to pad his stats. Dillon Brooks is a good role player. He's just not good in the playoffs, but he can possibly help them turn around and help them have somewhat of a winning culture. But, they had to start somewhere. And again, that 10th pick, they could pick up a blue chip prospect that might help, the building of the team, the rebuilding, I would say, giving them a new foundation. So they had to start somewhere. I think just getting a lottery pick was very important for Phoenix, since they've given up so many picks in these trades they made the last few years, and getting Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant. So they start off in a better place to somewhat rebuild, and they can just go from there. And the Rockets, I thought it was good for them because they needed someone with experience. They didn't have that in last year's playoffs against the Warriors. They need a guy, who can perform at a high level in the playoffs. Durant can definitely do that, So I think he's going to help them. Just being a veteran and just, him having that experience will be good. And then they kept Amen Thompson, which is really important because I think he's going to be their next great player. And they still got Sigun, who I call Shitgun after that horrible playoff performance this year. So I think both teams won. Then, yeah, it was great for both teams. Now, will I say the Rockets will win a title in this trade? Probably not, but I think they have a better chance of going further in the playoffs now with having Kevin Durant versus what happened this year. So definitely win-win for both teams.